All right, welcome back. This is the final Kentucky Derby prep of 2017, the Arkansas Derby Grade 1 race. This is going off Saturday at Oaklawn Park. Race 11, 9 furlongs on the dirt for 3-year-olds. This week is just going to be me talking this race through. Next week I'm going to catch back up with Scott Shapiro and some members of the optics team, talk about these Derby preps once the field's kind of sorted out with top 20 in points preparing into the Kentucky Derby. I do want to mention before I get started in this video, for our optics, we are going to run our normal weekend special that covers Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Kentucky Derby weekend. The price for that weekend is going to be $80, and that includes all 3 days, full access, every track that's running, plot, notes, grid, as well as special analysis. So we're going to do some race by race, horse by horse analysis package to go along with that weekend special. That'll be included in our for our monthly subscribers, both notes, plot, and full access. So make sure you guys, if you're interested, take advantage of that. It's going to be tons of value, lots of information. All right, let's get started on this race, Arkansas Derby. I want to start off with the two favorites in this race. The number 12, Malagacy. I think I was pronouncing it Malagacy, but we're going to go with Malagacy. This is the number 12 horse. And the number 2, kind of right here, is square in quadrant 1, Classic Empire. So these are both your morning line favorites, and I have a couple questions on both these horses. One of them is completely vulnerable and not used for me, and that is the number 12, Malagacy. Let me get into the grid, and we'll kind of go through that as to why I feel like this horse is vulnerable. We've got 3 races, perfect 3 for 3. Kind of clear out some filters on here, make that a little bit easier to read. 3 for 3, winning by kind of open lengths in all 3 starts, 15 lengths, 7 lengths, 2 lengths in the most recent Grade 2 Rebel. One of the things that kind of jumps out at me right away, of course, we have these keywords, perfect. So this horse has been sort of the benefactor of perfect trips both times. Steadily improving, can't knock the 3 for 3. But one thing that is noted in both of his last 2 starts, this is an extended comment that I gave over at Gulfstream Park. Perfect trip, catching a soft field. I think we'll even go back to the debut. Looks up to 1 turn at 8 furlongs. And then last time out, Donald Harris, who does the notes over at Oaklawn Park, noted that this horse is going to have distance limitations at this level. So not only has this horse been receiving perfect trips, kind of having it his own way, but the distance is a question, and I think based on those factors, taking a short price, have to be against this horse in this spot. We'll look over at the plot again real quick, because I just kind of alluded to it. Circle in quadrant 1. There's some horses that look better, even though this is not, a terrible spot. I think it's pretty similar to, let me pull up the Rebel, the number 6. Yeah, I mean, almost identical. He's kind of a small circle right below the par line in quadrant 1. Looks very similar to today's plot. So obviously a spot that he can win from. Just those other factors, and of course combined with price. We'll look at the number 2, Classic Empire. Classic Empire, there's 2 horses that are kind of overlapping here, but Classic Empire is this green square in quadrant 1. I'll kind of highlight it. You can scroll down at the table, and if you just kind of roll over each horse, you'll see it kind of puts a darker outline border around. So quadrant 1 square, very favorable plot for this horse. Looks like should get a perfect trip. And that's part of my questions with this horse. Classic Empire is most of his wins have been with perfect trips. B+ effort in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile with a perfect trip. Fairly perfect trip over at Keeneland, winning the Breeders' Futurity. Was a little wide, but I think that was kind of favorable for that track on that day, being an outside tracking trip. Last time out, I don't think that effort was terrible. This is a B- grade. As a favorite, anytime a horse is going to lose by 9 lengths, it's not encouraging. But the biggest note on this horse was the pre-race antics. It's super washed out. I mean, just head to toe, boiling over, reluctant to load. Just didn't just did not give off a positive physical appearance. And that's, you know, something to watch for. Obviously, I'm doing this video, I won't be able to tell that ahead of time, but when you're watching the horse, I would definitely keep an eye on that. If he looks much more composed, that would give me a little bit more confidence, again, of Classic Empire and Malagacy. I'd be more likely to use Classic Empire. It was noted one of his workouts kind of refused to work, and then since has gone to the farm, 2 gate works. I believe this is a training center here, but pretty solid work tab since. There's a 10-day gap, which makes sense, you know, as far as the ship, and then a little break after that January 28th work. So, again, my question here is, you know, I want to see the horse on the track for sure. As far as trip goes, plot suggests this horse is going to get a perfect trip. Hasn't really faced too much adversity, and certainly none caused by others. You know, he kind of causes his own trouble, which is a concern when you're taking a horse at a short price. So again, of those two, I'd probably be more likely to use him, but it would not give me that much confidence, especially if I'm playing like a multi-race sequence when I have no chance to look at this horse on the track. So I want to kind of reference back to the plot and kind of look at some other contenders, and I'm going to go to the number 9 horse here, Untrapped. Plot position wise, this looks like a very favorable spot, you know, kind of getting a stalking trip if one, I think this is I'm going to have to find where that horse is, but we've got the 1 out on the lead, Classic Empire, Silver Dust is down there in 3. Petra is this small square here. So we'll look at Untrapped. We'll also look at Petra, kind of getting a good stalking trip. One thing, you know, looking at the plot, I'm like, this is probably the horse. This looks like a good spot. But I have a couple concerns on this horse that, you know, one, let me reference again. We'll kind of go back to the plot on the Rebel. Petrov being a huge square in quadrant 1, pretty similar to what looks like today. He's got a smaller square, but similar position. And then same thing with Untrapped, another horse that you would look at from the plot and say, you know, very favorable. These are the 2 horses, and neither of them won. So the fact that they have a good plot today, I wouldn't toss them necessarily, but it just doesn't give me as much confidence because they've had those similar setups before. And you know, it's a good feature with grid and plot to kind of go back and see, you know, if there's any type of mismatch or run style that you can kind of learn something from. So from a trip wise, should be right there. And then we'll kind of dig into the grid. This is the number 9, Untrapped. These last 3 grades, all in graded stake races, have been a B-, and so that concerns me from a class standpoint. Is just this horse seems to be just not doing enough when he needs, and there's not much excuse, you know. In the mud, there was a little bit of traffic, saved ground in the Risen Star. In the Rebel, warm, cover, grip minus, so just kind of had a perfect trip, and then, you know, kind of lacked that finish that we want to see, you know, getting an extra half furlong. So there's things in there that concern me as far as speed figures go, fits. So there's things to like about this horse, but I just really question the overall quality. Another thing I found a little bit interesting, and this is just sort of some outside handicapping, is, you know, Mike Smith is going to ride Untrapped, you know, coming in to ride this horse, and Mike Smith is committed to the Derby on Gervin. So I don't know if he's kind of hedging here, but I just think it's kind of interesting, you know, as an added handicapping factor, whether, you know, if this horse wins, what he ends up doing, or he committed to the mount ahead of time, and Gervin is his Kentucky Derby mount. So just kind of worth noting. I'm not really like over the top, like, oh, Smith is coming out to ride this horse because he's already committed on another mount. Solid workouts coming in. And the other horse I wanted to look at before we kind of jump around to some longer price horses, we'll look at the number 4, Petra, who's kind of similar to Untrapped in that way, just hasn't really done enough when given, you know, in these kind of similar circumstances. B, B, B-, B in the Southwest, B- in the Rebel, did lack room, and then just kind of one pace. So you'd want to see see a little bit more late. That's kind of the class factor. Might have been running these two races kind of back to back. The Smarty Jones of Southwest maybe just was a little flat and not quite as recovered. It's kind of the only thing I could think as far as, you know, why it was just kind of one pace late. So if you're taking kind of a forgiving stance, I could make that argument for this horse. So, you know, if you're spreading, you're just kind of not trusting those two horses. You know, those kind of seem like the logical alternatives. Again, I don't know how much value they're going to be. I guess Petrov's a pretty square 12-1, and then 6-1 on Trapped. Again, neither kind of overly excite me, but I could make cases for using them. I'm going to kind of get a little stabby here in this race and look at two horses that, from a trip standpoint, are down here in quadrant 4. So, you know, it's always concerning because trip is going to make all the difference. But I'm going to look at the number 3, Silver Dust, and the number 6, Looking at Lee. And I should probably go to number 6 first, because I've picked this horse a couple times, and my first time kind of handicapping through this race, I was like, I'm not picking this horse again. I've picked this horse. He's too slow. Doesn't get out of the gate. But I'm just a little interested based on price, and I'm kind of looking for horses, both the number 6, Looking at Lee, and the number 3, Silver Dust, are getting something different, and maybe that's what it's going to take here. Looking at Lee, I kind of back this up a little bit. The B in the Breeders' Futurity, so that's a B in a grade 1. We'll do a class sort in a second, but I think Looking at Lee and Classic Empire are the only 2 B's at the grade 1 level. B- in Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and this is the one where he kind of had blood coming out of his mouth, came back with a C+ here. A little slow out of the gate and kind of got bumped, was further back than he needed to. I was really expecting this horse to be closer to the pace last time out in the Revel, and he wasn't. So that, you know, these last 4 races being that far back at the first call really bothers me. But if for some reason can get a little bit closer, and that's what I was saying about a change, Louise Contreras is going to pick up this mount. He's not necessarily a super aggressive rider, you know, he can be at times, but it's not like, you know, we're getting Paco Lopez on there, and I think he's going to send this horse and really put him into the race. Contreras is capable, but I do find it interesting that Louise Contreras is kind of sticking around taking this mount because it is opening weekend at Woodbine, and that's his home base, and you'd think unless he had any reason to, you know, stay for a mount or anything like that, he would be up at Woodbine opening weekend where most of his clients are. So that's a little interesting to me, and again, this horse is going to be a big price. He deserves to be a big price. Speed figure wise are a little bit short. I think this race is probably going to be mid to upper 90s, so this horse does need to take another step forward. Is kind of steadily progressing at 90, 94. You know, one more jump, maybe a little bit tactical ride could get this horse there. Again, it's just kind of coming down to price and the fact that I just don't have much confidence elsewhere. Let's look at the number 3, Silver Dust, and a lot of similar stuff. We kind of have a speed figure progression in every start: 77, 87, 90, 95. Again, these are optics figures. We incorporate pace in there. Coming off the layoff at the Southwest, C+ gallop improved, so that's a positive, and did have some stretch traffic in the Rebel. So a horse that's kind of going forward, and again, I'm looking for some type of change. So in Looking at Lee, we've got a rider change, and on Silver Dust, they're adding the blinkers. So couple things that are positive. Speed figures going in forward direction, and then just something a little bit different. So they're really trying. Other than the rest of these horses, we've seen who they are. So those are 2 horses to me that I think are a little bit interesting. Obviously, prices, good tournament type horses. Really, the knock is going to be trip. Being down here, they're going to need some things to work out. There is, as far as the plot goes, looking at standard here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 horses in quadrant 1 and then a couple pieces. So there's a chance that there's some horses that are going to be forwardly placed, at least trying to get position. Always important to just sort of see how the track is playing that day. If it's all front runners, I mean, both those horses are going to be completely up against it. Let's go back to the grid. I did want to do kind of a class sort. I've shown this technique in a couple of the most recent videos, but again, we'll just type a G. That'll just sort out our our graded stake races. Sometimes anything that has a G in there, and we'll look for. We'll just kind of keep it on all grades here. But you can kind of see, Classic Empire from a class standpoint, 2 B pluses at a grade 1, so that horse stands out. Silver Dust we talked about, class-wise a little bit below, but you can make some cases for moving forward. Petrov, looking at Lee. Sonneteer, I'll talk about this horse because he ran a good second, closing ground on the inside in the Rebel. Will need to, again, move forward, I think, or at least repeat that effort. I'm going to pull up that horse in a second. Let's just kind of finish this out. Rally the Warrior, a little bit below, C+, is one that could pick up the pieces. Malagacy, I already spoke about being against, Untrapped. Just, you can see it here, it's pretty clear. 3 B minuses at the graded stake level, so class-wise question. Let's clear this out, and I wanted to look at the number 7, Sonneteer. This horse was more than 100 to 1 last time out, filling out the exacta. This horse has not, he's always kind of shown some ability, some kind of bad rides, makes a move in the race, closes, always running on, always making up ground at the end. Only 1 time out of the superfecta. Again, this is a maiden. I earned some points last time, so kind of could be the same technique. Of course, they're trying to win. In his run lines, there are some familiar names in there, especially in Southern California. Reach the World, Royal Mo, Term of Art, Irish Freedom. There's, he's run against some stake quality horses. It's hard for me to, again, just kind of push him forward to the winner's circle, and maybe gets a little bit overbet off that last time. Certainly not going to be more than 100 to 1 here. Kind of the same trip as the other two. I just think the other two are a little bit more interesting, but definitely for a minor. The rest of the field, I'm just going to kind of scroll through really quick because I think there's just some of these horses that are a little bit below. The one shipping out from Southern California for Doug O'Neill. This is the horse that's stretching out to a routed ground for the first time and getting on dirt for the first time as a 3-year-old. So this horse from the rail and his run style is going to go take him as far as he can, as fast as he can. That's probably going to be a pace setter in the race, most likely. Number 2, Classic Empire, 2, 3, 4. We have talked about Grandpa's Dream, broke the maiden last time out. Decent speed figure in 93. Did have some things his own way on the front end. Not quite lone, but was able to mild flow, running with the track profile. Again, kind of going back, prep stretch turf, so that might be where this horse is at ideally. Number 6 and 7 we spoke about. Rowdy the Warrior. Speed figure wise, other than that Smarty Jones earning in 93, and thinking this race is probably going to be kind of that mid-upper 90s, this horse is going to really have to jump forward in order to be competitive here, and it's hard based on what this horse has done to kind of see that. Does make up ground late, has somewhat of a decent move, but maybe underneath at the best. Trapped. One Dreamy Dude, same thing as Ride of the Warrior, but even more so. Still a maiden. Speed figures are soft, and still a maiden. Yeah, still a maiden. Speed figures are soft, and trip wise, probably needs to be forwardly placed to do the best, and then not going to be there. Conquest Mo Money. So this is a horse that ran a good second at the Sunland Derby. A local horse there. Let's kind of look at this horse. We'll isolate him because we've talked about the 12. I don't have any trip notes on him. I thought that last race was good. It was an obvious second, hence the winner for the Asmussen Barn. Much the best that day. Kicked away from the field. I thought this horse ran a good race. Did lose a little bit of ground. Has to deal with the ship. on a new track, is not at his home track at Sunland, coming back in 20 days after running a best. Those are all things you should be thinking about when you're handicapping, thinking that probably a 97 is going to win. So on 20 days rest, this horse duplicating that is probably a little bit of a reach, plus a ship, but cool horse, can't fault him. He's 3 wins and a good second, earned some points, earned some money, Conquest Mo money. All right, kind of come back through the field. So that's sort of my opinion on the Arkansas Derby. I think it's an interesting race. A lot of horses in here, have to earn points or that's it. Some of them are already in. Interesting running. Again, thank you guys for listening, subscribing, supporting Optics. Again, weekend package for this weekend leading up to the Derby, $50. That gets you full access to every race, every track that we cover, Optics notes, plot, quad stat, grid, lots of good features. You'll really improve your handicapping. So thanks again, and next week we'll do Kentucky Derby recaps.